Welcome to the Dev Banner. This is Eric. This is episode 4. We're going to continue on with our development of Prognos. Last time, I gave the homework, the optional homework to fill in the entities that we did in account. And so if you go look at the manager for like account column, you'll see that read, create, update, delete. I actually took out list on this one. One of the things I wanted to show was budget allocation. I only did a list and an upsert. And an upsert is an update, insert. And the reason why I did that is that category ID is a foreign key, foreign column to another struct or another table, and we just have an amount. And so I thought, if the ID was already there, then you just easily update it versus deleting it and inserting it again or whatever. So that's kind of the only difference on that is the upsert on that. And if you look at the code in file, you'll see that if I find the same category ID, I'm going to change the amount. And I pass in the category ID and amount instead of like a struct in this case. I could have done either one, but it doesn't matter. It's sixes. And then the other thing was to look at generalizing the file save and open functions that were kind of generic enough that any of these entities could use that. And so if we go back up to account, for instance, in file I have this, or in account of file.go I have open file and then save file where I need them, and I'm passing in just the entity name. And so if you go into file.go under utilities, and I'll go through this really quick. Both open save file look about the same, though they do things a little different. Like the read file reads through this OS package, standard package, reads the file, and out comes is a byte array, and then this JSON encoding package will unmarshal it and put it into this object with just this interface, an empty interface, which could be any object. In this case, it's going to be either a map or an array, and JSON will want one of those. And then it's opposite for the save file, where I marshal indented. There's marshal and marshal indent. This just makes it pretty. And then I take the content of that encoding and I push it into the file with this write file. But both of them do this. We set this default object, and we use this reflect package. And what that does is let me pull up the website, and this is the reflect package, and implements runtime reflection, allowing a program to manipulate objects with arbitrary types. The typical use is to take a value with static type interface and extract its dynamic type information. So, and then that's from type of, and then value of is to get the value represented in the real-time data. So all I'm doing is I'm getting the value of it, and I'm actually looking at what kind it is. And if it's a slice, then I'm going to give it this, set that default object. Then in both of them, as you see, I am doing create file, which is all it's doing is it's taking the name or the full file path is what I've set in both of them. And I'm just making sure it's there. And if it's not, then I will create it and set it to its default, whether it's a map or an array. And that's my generic version of it. And so now that you've seen both of those, kind of the homework I gave, let's go on and let's determine how we are going to interact with the user to fill in these entities. So I'm going to come to this main package in the terminal, and I have this main menu, and what I want to do out of it is show a menu, ask the user for input, and then depending on the input, I'm going to go down to another menu, and if they want to exit, this is where they would exit. So let's look at this code. So here's what the users will see in printing out to the line, out to the terminal. And then this parse input is just this read string is I'm expecting read from standard in, and whenever I see the new line, which is enter or return, I'm gonna break it, I'm gonna trim that all off, and then send it back. So a little function I wrote, and I just use it everywhere. And so that's where this selection comes in. And so I'm going to use the strings package and lower it. So if they put in a capital R or a capital E, we're still going to check through the switch case statement, R and E. And R is we're going to go down to the records menu, or E, we're going to break and get out of here. And then this default is if it's not any one of those, it says not a valid entry, press enter to continue. And we're not really necessarily need to capture it. We're just waiting for the enter, and then we'll loop back through this for loop. If you haven't seen my video on how to use for loops, and then go back to my channel and take a look at that. So this will be really the only option on this menu, and so that will go down to this records menu. And the records menu, all it does is it looks about the same, right? Other than the names and then some of the options. And we have an accounts and the same thing. So let's look at how do we implement this. So let's go up to CMD terminal and go into main. And this is what we were doing last time. We were creating an account and calling this account A, which goes down to this guy right here, right? Goes down to the manager and calls this create. Well, we're looking for just to call this menu. So let's go ahead and delete that. And we don't need, so I'm going to change this to T, and we're going to change that to terminal. And then all we have to do is T, nope, we got to delete this word. There we go. I wasn't getting my, there you go, main menu. And that's it. And that's really all main needs, is this application, this starting point of our main function. We're just going to go down to the menu, and once again, you'd want to keep main small so that it's easier to test along the way, because if a lot of things are in main, then it's harder to test. It's just a software engineering principle, and I really like it. So let's go ahead and let's go build. And that seemed to work. And I'll do my and terminal. And let's see what we got here. We have main menu, we got our options, records, and R. So I'm going to try exit just to see what it does. And it doesn't look like it's working correctly. Okay, so what that is this break. Once again, if you go to my looping video on loops, we'll learn about this, but this break only breaks out the switch. And so I'm going to make it a little easier, and I kind of already did this down here, but I'm going to copy that and just put it up here. And basically, I'm just going to say, hey, if the two lowers selection is an E, I'm going to break, which then will break it out of this loop. And there is a different way, and go watch my video on loops, and you'll see the other way. And so if we come out to the records menu, you'll see that I'm doing the same thing. And in this case, I'm calling records account, which is in this file right here. And we'll go over that in a minute. So let's go ahead and save that and run it. And now if I press E, we exit. If I press R, if I press A, for instance, you're going to get that, and which is what we expect. So let's go to R. R then says we're in records, and we now have this menu right here. And so let's go into account, and we now have what I would expect, that once you're in the account, there the options is our CRUD, and also with our list, or E for exit. So if I do E exit, record, account, back to where we at. So account looks about the same, printing all this stuff out. I'm going to grab my selection. I'm in the for loop. And if I do C, it says in create. If I do R, it says I'm in read. And it just prints it, and it loops back and prints all that stuff again. And if I do A, not a valid choice. So I'm in the list. Okay, so pretty simple. So let's tie this up to actual calling the entities manager, and to actually get some records into our files. And so let's go look at account. That's what I'll be focusing on. We already have this one account that I did from last time, when I had it manually going up through the main function. And we are going to call each one of these. So I've already wrote them, and all we're doing is, for like a create, for instance, we're going to print out a new thing, a new menu, but we don't have options this time. We have, we're actually gathering data for an account. So I got my account name, account owner, the name, owner name, the date format, and reverse sign. Now you'll see the reverse sign, since it's not a string, is I did this kind of check where if you can either write true or yes, or I can actually even do equals T, and if any of those come across, we're going to set to true, but by default, the reverse sign in as a variable name is always false. So that's what I'm only curious. I'm only worried about if they give me one of those things. Now you could put in something like yes, no, and that size, yeah, we want yes, no, but then we'd have to check for it, and that might be something that you might want to do in your homework, your optional homework. Then this is actual call the manager's data create, and then we ask for another one. And once again, if they do N or no, then we break, which would break out of this loop and then go back to the. So let's actually hook these up. So let's do create account, read account, update account, delete account, and list account. Okay, so we're gonna do that now, and we do know that we have already a record in there. So I'm gonna read, and I already know that it's ID 1 because it's the first one. So if I do 1, then I get this really account details and then that account. So if we go back and look at, looks about the same other than the formatting. Okay, and read another, no. So let's do a list. It doesn't ask me for anything because it's just going to give me all of them. So I'm going to press enter. So let's go ahead and create one, and let's do Visa, for instance. Me. Let's mess up the date. So it's a 3-digit year, and reverse sign, we're just going to enter. And as you see, I saved it. It saved it just like I said, right? Like I put it in. And so we're going to say no. And now if we do a list, you'll see that both of them there. And then let's update it. Now, update is interesting because I was, and read, you'll see that that was the output. And it looks pretty similar, the flow is pretty similar. But the update, I wanted to show a little different. And that is I'm going to show you after I get the number that I want, the ID that I want to change. So we're going to do number 2. Now, what I wanted to show is if you change it, we want to save it. If you don't change it, then we want to just leave it alone and not do anything with it. So on this case right here, here's that format that I'm just done. And I'm waiting for an enter with this parse input. Now, if account name comes back as empty because I just press enter, then it won't go into here. But if it's not empty and if account name is different than what I had before, then I'm going to go ahead and change it. So I could type in Visa here and it's not going to go into 137. But if I just press enter, that, and if I do that and fix the date, then we'll do that. And so at this point, we should, and once again, that reverse sign, we have to do some funky stuff, some different stuff because we're not dealing with just straight up strings, but we're going to do update data. So if I go ahead and do that, you'll see that that changed. And we're going to say no, and then we're going to go delete. So let's delete 2, and it's gone. So that is that's the progress I want to make on the program for today. And as you see, the homework is to fill in those records if you want. It's optional. Fill in the records, fill in the the menu for account column, budget allocation, category, and transaction. Now, an optional thing is what can you do to maybe make these more generic so that you only have to write maybe a couple lines and still get the functionality, because we seem to do this quite a bit, right? And I'll tell you, this is part of our engineering. This is a part of programming, software development, is you write something, you're like, and this is my personal theory is you write something, you just get it out there, get it working, and then you go back and you refactor. And so this would be refactoring into something that makes the code a little bit smaller, makes it a little bit more functional, makes it a little less repetitive in your code, and that's how software works. And so I'm giving you an opportunity to get in there and try some things, and then next video, or at least when this gets published, this video, there'll be a episode 4 done, and you'll see my changes that I've made, and you can compare it against yours. So that's it. See you next time. Please subscribe to the channel and make sure notifications are turned on.